Good morning, everyone. My name is Samah Ali, and I am the programmer for the Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival. Today is day 3 of our virtual weekend together, and we are here for the Q&A of the Defining Black block, available for you to watch today and tomorrow on Seed and Spark. I would like to make just a general note. Nana Fuayibo Abrantu was not able to make it today, so I'll be taking over her spot, and we're wishing her all the best. Before we get into the Q&A, I would like to take a minute to acknowledge the land we gather on. Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival is hosted on the unceded land of the Piscataway, Lumbee, and the Cherokees people. We organize on the ancestral homeland of the Piscataway people, now known as present-day Baltimore. We wish to pay our respects to the elders, past and present citizens of the Cedarville Band of the Piscataway Conoy, the Piscataway Indian Nation, and the Piscataway Conoy tribe. We strive to hold space and value the perspectives that these nations share regarding their histories, cultures, and traditions. As we build community with sovereign nations to ensure reconciliation on their rightful land, we encourage our attendees to learn more at about the Piscataway by going to piscatawayindians.com. That is PISCATAWAY Indians.com. Just for some housekeeping rules today, I will ask a few questions to all of the folks who are in the room, and then our lovely audience joining it on both Facebook and YouTube. You can make comments where we can ask your questions at the end of our panel discussion. Without further ado, I would like to toss it over to some folks present in our proverbial room. I will ask all of the folks present to introduce themselves and the film that they are representing today. Amber, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Amber Washington. I am the writer, director, and co-editor of A Time and Place to Twerk and the Tipsy Talk series.
Who wants to go next?
I am Talia Grimes, and I am a producer for the Literacy Project, and the film that I'm representing today is They Say I Am Your Teacher.
Hi, my name is Kendra Brown, and I am the writer, director, and co-editor of The Walk Home.
Hi, Chanel Glover. I am co-writer and co-producer of Sasha and Condi.
Hi, I'm Ife Oluwamuyide, and I am the co-writer and director of Omobinrin, My Daughters.
Hi, my name is Emeraude, and I am the director of It's a Little Complicated.
Hi, my name is Juh Smith. I'm the co-writer and co-producer of Sasha and Condi.
Thank you, folks, all for being here today. I am so thrilled to get into a good discussion about our premier blocks that we have every year at the festival, Defining Black. Jules, I will hold it at you, but this is a question for everybody, so I will give everybody an opportunity to speak. My first question is, how does your films both capture and honor the complexities of the Black femme voice and their experiences? Jules, why don't you start us off?
Sure, thanks for the question. I think what we wanted to do is really recreate or retell different moments in the 90s from a Black femme perspective. And yeah, just putting that spin on it, different historical moments. Some of them were real, some of them were not, but really wanted to bring in the perspective of Black femme identified characters.
Mm-hmm. Chanel, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll just add to, I think it's also kind of defining or exploring what activism looks like, too. I think especially during this time where we're all trying to figure out like what role we play in the BLM movement. And I think it's like we see Condi as this character who's a mother and, you know, seeing mothering as being a form of activism. And then we have Sasha on the very other extreme who taken the more radical form of activism. So I think it's also kind of through our nostalgia and through our history exploring what it means to be in activism as a Black woman.
Mm-hmm. The two dynamics of those characters as well. It's everything that you would see at a protest, at home, in the classroom. And so I definitely see where y'all are coming from. Who else wants to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I think for us, our goal was kind of to give new light to the Black immigrant experience. A lot of times we see like our parents, well, personally for me and Claudia, our parents have like this very hard exterior. So we wanted to show that they actually have a range of emotions. They feel fear, they feel sadness, they feel happiness, and kind of give humanity to Black immigrant parents. And our film does center a mother and her two daughters. So that was kind of our goal in essence.
And I see the film's poster is actually right behind you. Well placed, Ife. I love that.
Thanks.
Talea, how about you?
Well, my film's a little different. It's a short taken from a longer film called You've Got to Move, which was made in the 80s. And but the film is about the citizenship schools in the 1950s and 60s. So I think, you know, the whole idea of Black femininity was sort of starting them. Though the film that we have made now out of this archival film, our hope is to highlight Black activist women, that history in the South, taking their own agency and creating schools so that Black people in South Carolina could learn to read and write and pass the literacy tests that were imposed on them. If they couldn't pass it, they couldn't vote. And these are two Black women that stood up and literally started schools. And they did it in concert with white people. Through the Highlander Center in Tennessee. So we just really wanted to highlight, for us, it's highlighting these voices and also showing the activists today what came before them.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why your film, most importantly, kind of like ends the program is, you know, this is a very much a program of multiple Black experiences across the country and across the diaspora. And even here in the United States, you see how the literacy test was something that actually ruled out folks from citizenship. And so we found that was really close to, you know, the story of immigration for other films that are featured in this program.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I actually, you know, with that in mind, Emeraude, I would love to get your thoughts about Black femme voices and experiences that you depicted in your film.
Yes, mine was a bit weird. Like the whole process of just getting my mom to talk about her story was very difficult. I was basically following her around with a mic, just asking random questions. Like I would be like, and so what happened next? And she would ask me, what do you mean what happened next? And I'd be like, what happened after my dad left to Switzerland? Or what happened after you gave birth to my sister? Or what happened when you were forced to take care of your siblings and your child? As others have said, it's just trying to get to the bottom of, not to the bottom, but trying to get trying to understand the immigrant experience, the refugee experience from the perspective of women and femmes, because we often we talk about refugees, we talk about them as a whole, not their individual experiences. And so for me, it was important to know how my mother got here, understand what she was going through when she was separated from my father, and just trying to convey that refugee experiences and immigrant stories are complex, and that they don't always have to be super emotional. They can be lighthearted. And they could be whatever they want them to be. Like there are so many things that my mother wanted to say, but that she found that was not appropriate because she knew it was going to be made into a documentary. But I just wanted to show people that immigrant and refugee stories are all different, and the women and femmes who are going through these things, are going through like just they're fighting different battles, and so that's what I wanted to show.
And it's tangible, and I hear what you're saying about, you know, your mom kind of censored herself because of the idea that this is going to be a documentary. And I think that's kind of the things that, you know, we lose when we're documenting our stories in very colonial ways, right? There are things that we don't want to record. There are things that we don't want to write down because they are quote unquote shameful. However, they are valuable and, you know, important for us, and future generations of us need to know.
Exactly. I think we definitely need to know everything. That way we can understand what people are going through right now. I don't think these types of stories should be censored, but obviously it is up to the people who have gone through these things, what they want to share. And so I pushed my mother a little bit, but I didn't really force her to say what she didn't want to say. And I obviously cut a lot of parts as well, just to keep it on the same pace with what my father was saying, with what my siblings were saying as well.
And, you know, that censored relationship is kind of like the very much opposite for you, Kendra, for the walk home, because the female voice and that was like very much like, Dad, I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel. Talk to me about the Black femme voice in your film.
Yeah, so I think with my film, The Walk Home, the main character, whose name is Kay, she feels like she's being pulled into two different directions. One is her father having difficulty coming to grips with her growing up, and then her friends at school who already get to experience hanging out after school and that whole experience. And so she's a character that doesn't have everything figured out and is still discovering who she is outside of her home life and outside of school. And there are many Black femmes, especially at that age, being a teenager, who assert themselves, but at the same time are still learning and growing and trying to understand who they are within their society and in their community. And I think as a Black femme, you see that it's normal to struggle with being an outcast at school or among your friends. And at the same time, there being a lot of tension with your parent because you realize what you want for yourself outside of who they may be pushing you to be.
Beautifully said. That duality was definitely very much a tension that you feel throughout the film. And, you know, I want to toss it to Amber now, kind of to close off this question, because your film of all is the most explicit and the most jarring film to watch, especially with how it's a mixed form. So talk to us about the Black female characters that you wrote, and then also the Black femme voices and experiences that you depicted in A Time and Place to Twerk.
Yeah, so A Time and Place to Twerk was really just about finding a time and place where Black femmes can feel comfortable, confident, and safe, and kind of expressing how difficult of a task that is. And the closer that you get to achieving it, the more upset and threatened people seem to be around you. So the narrative portion was about me and my sister just trying to find that comfort and that confidence and that safety. And then even just filming that experience was upsetting. And it just, yeah, it's it's just one of those things where it's like, it's a simple task, but it really isn't for this demographic. And it was a story within a story, and I think it just
and you captured the story within the story exceptionally well. I've seen it. You know, the thing is, y'all, the programming community is very small, and so I watched Amber's film for a different festival, saw it, and I was like, this needs to be a Black femme because it's just exceptional. For those folks who have not watched the program, Defining Black, you need to watch it. It's going to be playing until Monday, so please make sure you get oriented in this discussion. It's going to be on Seed and Spark. Let's now focus on a few more questions. Ife and Emeraude, I would like to focus on YouTube just for a little bit. What makes film, the ideal medium for capturing and sharing Black immigrant women's stories? And then, a follow-up to that, how have the women in your families and communities reacted to the on-screen homages that you've depicted? Ife, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm studying fine art in school. So for me, I think film is the most like direct way to get images from my mind into like the world. Like I also paint, I also draw, and sometimes there is like a disconnect or there feels like there is a barrier when I try to get something from my mind onto the page. But with film, it's so like I can just pick up a camera and what I see is what I document. It's like a documentation. And it just feels like it's the most honest way to capture these experiences and a way that like visually, like people can really receive it, like a wider audience can receive it. It's the most accessible. Unlike, like fine art, you see it in museums and stuff, and not everybody wants to go to museum, but people will watch a YouTube link, people will watch a movie in the theater. So for me, that's why film is the best way. The way that the women in our community have received it, I remember when we were doing like the first cuts of the film, I showed my parents and they liked it. But my mom did feel she kind of felt violated in a way. I didn't really think she would receive it in that way. She was like, "Why are you telling my story?" I'm like, "It's not about you." Me and Claudia didn't sit down and think like, "Oh, my mom, what do I want to say about my mom?" It was more of a culmination of all the experiences of Black immigrant women in our lives that we were kind of drawing from. And it just so happened that it really did hit home with my mom as well, which I was really surprised. When we did finish the film, we had a couple screenings with our community. And afterwards, we had discussions as well with a lot of Black immigrant women from Africa. And I was just so shocked by how they received it. It seemed to really hit home with them. They were really receptive to it. They started sharing their stories as well. And I think that's when my mom found a bit more comfort in that, like, it wasn't just about her, it was about so many other women. And we did not expect it to be received in that way. So it was really reassuring that they felt like we told their story in the best way that we could.
That is powerful. Emeraude?
I definitely agree with Ife 100%. I think film is the most accessible medium when it comes to fine art. Not only the fact that you could do like captions and CCTV and all that type of stuff, but in the sense that when you make film, you don't assume that your audience already knows what you're talking about. You can kind of take them on this journey with you, and they can learn as you learn as well. It's very different because in comparison to like a paper or a book or something like that, I also have an MFA degree. So my approach to it, I try to approach film from the oppressed views. Just trying to see. I'm trying to explain this in a way that makes sense, but I'm filming in a way that doesn't allow for my participants to feel like they're subjects, especially with my mom, because she was sick for a while, and so I wanted to make this film in case something happened. But she is fine now, and so I have this great story to tell and just remember her history and her story. But I wanted to approach this in a way that did not make her feel like she was being observed. I wanted her to have her own voice, to be the one to tell me, this is where this ends. This is what I'm saying, and that's that. I'm not going to keep talking smack about your grandmother, despite the fact that I don't like her. So just allowing my mom and everyone who participated in this film to be in charge, basically, and allowing the audience to understand that, hey, this is a film about a refugee, but it is not the type of film that you would see at like TIFF or Sundance, where you have unlimited access to their stories and their pain. You will very much be given some information, But then if you're seeking more information, you won't get it. Like if Catherine decides, that's my mother's name, sorry. If she decides that she doesn't want to talk about something, that's that, and we're moving on. So that's what I did. And that's very much how she was when I was interviewing her. Like I would beg at some points to just like have her say something more, and she would be like, actually, I'm going to do my nails now. And that was the end of the interview. But when it premiered at Doc Now, at another film festival, my aunts and my friends really loved it, and they were really receptive to it. And I even had some that were that told me that they were going to talk to their mothers about their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And when I showed them to my aunts at another time, they loved it, and they thought that I would make a documentary about them. So they were wanting the celebrity status, and I was like, no, I'm a documentary filmmaker, so that will not happen. But they really enjoyed the fact that I spoke about my mother, and my mother spoke in a way that didn't feel like it was disruptive, that didn't feel like I was being too nosy, or that I disrespected them, or that I gave information that they didn't want. That I allowed them the space to be and to say what they wanted, and then just end it when they wanted it. And also the fact that there weren't too many home videos that featured their faces, that it was mixed in with some archival footage of their home, and a home that they very much recognized when they were growing up before the First and Second Congolese Wars. So they really enjoyed the fact that I was able to balance all of that out and just talk to give them a story about that, like, resembles their own stories, but doesn't really give away too much information.
Question for you: did you, allow them in the editing process? For consent, did they have, cut review, or was it just all your discretion?
No, because I didn't allow my mom, but she very much said what she didn't want something in. So we would be talking about something, and after that she would pause and she would say, don't put that in. So I would listen to the whole clip, and then at the end, if I heard like don't put that in, or like don't say anything, or don't tell anyone this, I knew I had to like either delete a huge chunk of that clip, or I could just like give the audience a little bit of like, just like drop a little hint in there, and then be like, oh, sorry, no more information. So she was very clear.
And you shot on film for this?
Everything is archival material, so it's all film. And then I shot some on my iPhone towards the end. And I did shoot on a Canon, but then I didn't like any of that footage, so I just kept everything else film.
Because you stayed very true to, a certain aesthetic throughout the film. So well done.
Thank you.
Amber, I want to pivot to you. How does it feel to share and also process the racial trauma attached with your film in a space that is meant to, center and honor Black femmes? I have a following question after this, so take a time and do this first question.
It feels good. When everything, you guys still see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
When after kind of the drive-by inward incident and it started to rain, we all had to get into each other's cars to stay dry, and I was in a car with just my actresses, and I remember sharing a look with them and just kind of laughing after. It just felt like we could finally
release,
take that breath. Yeah. That we finally got to exhale. And making it was kind of exhausting because I am a minority. There was only one other Black woman in our class, like of 40 kids, and making this and everything, I felt like with them in that car, I didn't have to kind of explain what just happened. I didn't have to justify anything or any feelings. We could just feel that, what I mentioned before, that comfort, that confidence, and that safety. And I feel a little bit of that here, with understanding that we all come from different backgrounds and things, but we all share a similar experience when it comes to being a minority and being a female. So that was good.
Honestly, when I was watching your film, I was tickled because I was like, this is a class project. This is a student film. And here we have like, a script that is trying to be read and like, just some random guy driving around saying the N-word, another person saying y'all can't afford to live here because this is a gentrified neighborhood. I was like, all these white people in the shot just don't know what to do. I was like, they feel so uncomfortable, and they're probably marching on the street right now because they've been snapped awake. That was right before COVID, and now everything has changed. That felt like literally a year ago because 2020 is so long. Second question for you, Amber. How does your commitment to filmmaking continue, and how do you continue to maintain and sustain it past your academic career?
Yeah, actually, what you're just saying with the white people in our class and the people who are experiencing this, I feel like A Time and Place to Turk was really made for them. When it came down to deciding if we were going to turn it into a documentary or not and everything, I feel like this really was for them. And it actually opened my eyes to the kind of content that I want to continue to make. And I want it to be for us. I feel like in this story, it necessarily wasn't being expressed as much as I would have liked. And I remember starting film school and people were like, oh, are you going to be, make movies like Tyler Perry or Shonda Rhimes? And that was really kind of the box they put me in. I remember I didn't like it. I was like, I'm just going to make movies like everyone else. I'm not going to make Black content. And through this experience and through this year, it's really opened my eyes that how could I make anything else? How could I not make content for us? How can I not make something where when you watch it, you feel like, oh, I can finally exhale. I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel confident, I feel comfortable, I feel safe. And so I'm hoping to continue that kind of storytelling through. I really want to get into making content for marginalized youth, specifically Black youth. So I do want to also get into kind of children's literature and animated content and start them young.
I love this. I look forward to seeing the rest of your work, Amber, and I also hope that we will have the pleasure of screening it at Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival because everyone here is part of the alumni now. Let's talk about Sasha and Condi. Let's do that. Jules and Chanel, can you please talk to us about how you conceptualized and developed the series, from the characters to the events and to the animation of all of it?
Yeah, so Chanel and I actually had been in talks for a while about what Sasha and Condi would look like. We talked a little bit about our own background and history growing up, wanting to be like hella pro-Black, but being in white spaces, white schools, white neighborhoods, and what that looks like when you're pro-Black in those spaces and you're an activist, and also like the counter to that, right? Like, which I think is Condi, which is like I'm in these white spaces, but I'm not going to be as pro-Black as you. So we wanted to balance like the experience of two young Black women in these spaces, but also just like the retelling of different historical moments, some of them real, some of them not, is meant to really bring some humor to like the kind of like irony of like racism and sexism. I know it doesn't seem like there should be humor in that, but that was part of the goal with the WNBA episode and the Buy Black episode, is really to bring some humor to a lot of these things that we see every day. and also do a little historical retelling.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit to that. I mean, to kind of go back to what inspired us. Me and Jules both love. We bonded over the Boondocks, and we love how the Boondocks, provide
Everyone
satire
nodding their heads
for.
like yes.
Right. We both really loved and appreciated how the Boondocks use a satire to sort of, critique our society and the issues in our society. And so that, our characters and our stories were created based off of, and then exaggerated. But we, basically are using these characters and these stories to explore and critique, racism and sexism and all of the structural racism and inequalities that we see. And we definitely both believe that, Black women are in need of a lot of joy and laughter. So
If
it's plenty
anything,
of that.
I'm wondering, like, there's something about the Black femme voice in mockumentaries that just needs to be, more. And I feel like this is why everybody loves the Boondocks, because it's very socio-political critique. This is why people in The Office love Stanley, because he just gives a look and it's like it says everything. It says all that we need to know. And that's the funny part about Sasha and Condi. I'm like this is the voice that I want to see. When is the series coming out? Talk to us about why you went with a mockumentary style. I'm just like totally infatuated with the entire series.
Chanel, you want to answer?
Okay. Well, great. Happy to hear. I just lost my train of thought. Well, I think we chose mockumentaries. For me, I think Black women are great with, I think we organically are sarcastic. We are great with the side eye. I think it just is kind of imbued in us, and we kind of need it, for our survival. But also, I think satire a lot of times has been unavailable to Black women, in mass media or even as just a political discourse. Oftentimes, if there is satire, we see men, white women, or Black men. And so this is a space that we just, we kind of fell into, but we are embracing. And I think we are, excited that we are in this space, and we are actively working on new episodes and hoping that, we get a big producer and some money to continue.
Anything
Yeah, and I'll say
Perfect.
one other thing. We're also like inspired by the drunk histories. I don't know if you know, but those kinds of retellings sometimes end up leaving out like very specific experiences. So we wanted to make sure that the 90s as an era was really like experienced through the eyes of these young Black women. And so in that sense, like we have an enormous amount of material that we've already written, but also that we can pull from when we think about the 90s. Everything from like Magic Johnson's announcement of HIV. I know that sounds crazy, but we're gonna make it funny. And then Tupac and Biggie, like the advent of Starbucks everywhere, these different like cultural moments and like how they affected young Black women. So we're excited to continue to do that, and yeah, we're looking forward to getting more resources so we can make more episodes.
I look forward to it. And folks obviously can watch the first 2 episodes at BFS Film Festival, so make sure you watch the Defining Black series, or screening, excuse me. Kendra, let's focus on you. Let's discuss the impact of coming of age films that center Black girls. Obviously, Crooklyn, Eve's Bayou, your film, The Walk Home. How did that impact your work?
Yeah, so I think with coming of age films that center Black girls, I definitely didn't see a lot when I was growing up. But as I became older, I was able to like actively search for these coming of age films that center us, and specifically by Black femme directors. And when I watched them, it definitely formed me in my experiences. And also at the same time helped me process many of the feelings that I had growing up and look back on. And it makes you feel like you're not the only person balancing all of these emotions and all of these complexities that you're experiencing. And some of the films specifically and shows that helped affirm me and also gave me inspiration for the walk home was Pariah, directed by Dee Rees, and then a short film called Seventh Grade, directed by Stephanie Santage, and then the show Insecure with Issa Rae. And I think Insecure personally impacted me because with seeing an awkward Black girl character and like relating to many of her experiences, and then with Pariah in Seventh Grade, both of those films were inspirations for me as I was writing The Walk Home. With Pariah being set in New York City and in a predominantly Black neighborhood, which is where I'm from, what I grew up experiencing. And then with the main character in Pariah, there's this balance of trying to appease what her parents want for her and then who she really is, which her friends help her explore. And I think there are also really vulnerable moments and moments of tension with her parents. And it was one of the first coming of age films where I saw the parents have such a huge presence in the film. And not only could I identify with that, but in The Walk Home, Kay's father, the main character, is also very much a part of her journey in discovering herself. And also you see how your relationships with your parents change as you get older. And then with the short film Seventh Grade, that was also a huge inspiration because the main character also feels outcasted and doesn't want to let go of things that her peers have already let go of because they seem childlike.
Mm-hmm. I'm loving all of your inspirations because they're the same things that inspire me with continuously watching these films. How does The Walk Home, build and extend the tradition of Black girlhood filmmaking and Black girlhood on screen?
Yeah, I think with my main character, Kay, you definitely see that she's able to assert herself and to speak to what she really wants. But at the same time, she also struggles because she's also growing up and she's also still discovering herself. At the end of The Walk Home, there's a song called I Regret It, that's sung by Latasha Lee. And it speaks to how two people are not able to communicate properly because they're not able to listen to each other and to really hear what each other is saying, and that the people themselves aren't able to find the words to really explain what they're experiencing. And I think in The Walk Home, you see that with both Kay and her father. Her father really just wants to protect her, and he's really having a good time with her growing up. But it comes out as, oh, I don't trust you in Kay's mind. And then Kay, she really just wants more independence. And she's realized that she's ready to walk home from school and to have more independence. But when she speaks to her father, it comes out as, oh, I blame you for not being able to experience these moments with my friends and to not have sort of that full experience with the people at school. And so you definitely see how both of them are really trying to find the words to express exactly what they're feeling, but it just comes out completely different than what they might have intended. And you also see a lot of vulnerability with Kay's character. So even though she's able to assert herself, she also has moments of vulnerability. And I think with both Pariah and Seventh Grade, you definitely see that complexity with the characters having to deal with that in different directions. And so I think The Walk Home is just an extension of what these amazing films by Black femme directors were able to capture, especially when it comes to how Black girls navigate their emotions and the way those around us, especially family, perceive our vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. A lot of themes in your film obviously are ringing true throughout the entire program. So I'm glad I'm seeing other folks nodding and seeing like, yeah, this is kind of like what we were trying to achieve. Talea, I want to end off my questions with you. However, I would like to let everybody know in the audience that if you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to put it in the comments. We'll get to it in just a short little bit. All right, Talea. Just a little question, just a little question for you. So tell me about the Literacy Project, first and foremost, and then how you got a hold of the original film to document the story and legacy of these Black femmes who were teaching like a generation.
Right. So the Literacy Project is a nonprofit created and run by Catherine Murphy. She's a documentary filmmaker, and she started this project because her films are at the intersection of literacy and as a social movement, or education as catalyst for social movements. And the original film, The Literacy Project, is a film called Maestra. It's in Spanish. There's an English version, and it's about the 1961 literacy campaign that Castro took on soon as they took over Cuba. And basically, he did a year campaign to make everybody literate by using school children who were literate. Sent them out into the mountains all over Cuba. Everybody became literate in 1 year, at least at a first grade level. They could write their name, write a letter, that sort of thing. So moving from that film, her latest project in the realm of literacy as a social movement is called Teach, and that's going to be a series of short films. This is kind of the first one out of that series, and it is based upon a film called You've Got to Move by Lucy Phenix, and that film was made, as I said, and came out in 1985, and it was the interview you see of Bernice Robinson was done in 1982. But her work was back they were working in the late 50s, 60s at the Highlander Center in Tennessee. This was a place where one of the few places in the South where Black and white people could come together and push for social change. It was totally integrated. And if you watch the whole You Got to Move film, you'll see the court cases and stuff, because white people in the South came for the Highlander Center at a certain point. But specifically, and the You Gotta Move has been broken up into 4 shorts under the Literacy Project. And one is They Say I'm Your Teacher, focused on Bernice Robinson. But the others deal with white people who were dealing with environmental problems in the mountains where they lived. And another one is about Black people in South Carolina doing labor organizing back in picketing back in the 50s, 60s. So the way we came to this project was I did the initial research about 2017, 2018, looking for, we knew we were going to do the citizenship schools and freedom schools. We knew Black women were key to this. Because the other person that's important to this is Septima Clark. And if you don't know her, she basically was a South Carolina teacher. Whites fired her because she refused to renounce her NAACP membership. And the head of the Highlander Center hired her. It was a white man. He hired her to start the citizenship schools. Bernice Robinson was her cousin. And the reason why she picked Bernice, she was a beautician. Why would you pick a beautician to be a teacher? Because she was economically independent and could not be fired by anybody. So she went with her cousin and they started these schools in South Carolina. And this is North Charleston and the Geechee Gullah areas. So this was highly dangerous. A lot of them were underground. So I found out about this movie, and I tracked Lucy Phenix down, the woman who did it. And initially we wanted anything in her archive that had not been in the film. Because you all make documentaries, you have
what's left on the cutting room floor.
Right. We wanted the cutting room floor. We wanted the gems that didn't maybe make it into the original film. But Catherine works very collaboratively. So when we tracked her down and she actually met with Lucy Phenix, Lucy's now an elder. She's in her late 70s. Lucy wanted, working back and forth with her, I really want to I see what's happening. I want to bring some of this stuff forward. And so those two collaborated and decided to make shorts out of the longer film that would be more easily used for activism. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately our goal is, right now the film is in the festival circuit, but after the beginning of October, they will be up on YouTube. And right now we're working really hard to get the film out for free to any voting organization that wants, or activist organization that wants to use the films to help push out the vote. Wow. So that's kind of how we've come to this. And I think it's important, in particular, this particular part of the shorts, really centers, it's about Bernice Robinson, a Black woman from the South. She's from that area, and she, along with her cousin, they did this at a very dangerous time. And so, you know, activists today know they're already standing on really strong and amazing shoulders, and they basically laid out a blueprint how this gets done. How do you create these schools? How do you mobilize this sort of thing?
Legacy. That's all I have to say.
Right.
Because that, it says it all.
Right.
And thank you for doing your work at the Literacy Project, because
Thank you.
Especially as it pertains to the upcoming election, this is going to be essential for people to, you know, see, to watch, and to know parts of history that are not in the textbooks and may be not disseminated in the first place to the communities that need them.
Right, and Black women were centered. You know, they're the center of this, of all these movements for Black people all over the world.
As always.
Right.
All right, folks. We have one question from the audience right now from Miss Nia Nicole. Can the panel talk about the way Obama's term and Kamala's potential win is shifting the way we define Black as well as the Black immigrant experience? Loaded question, Nia. Who wants to take it?
I'll jump in. Why not?
Come on, Talea. Come on, Talea.
The biggest thing, I think, the really important part of Kamala now being the VP is when she's broken a huge barrier. So it's just, people think sometimes just seeing it is very powerful, right? But I also, for me, is also the fact that she's Black, Asian, Jamaican, immigrant. Like, there's a whole section of the diaspora that the larger community doesn't understand, even the Black community. And the fact that she represents so many of those things, and that at one time there was actually a pretty strong Black and Asian connection against colonialism and imperialism, and in civil rights, is something that I think in the U.S. has been kind of lost, and that Black and Asian people exist, and they contribute. And I think there's a lot there for me when I think of her getting to this point on many levels. I also think it sort of speaks to there was some. It also speaks to some of the issues around, you know, Obama was also was mixed, and he was also immigrant, and so it also brings up some issues of African Americans getting to that high point as well. So I think there's just a lot of discussions, and I think they're good discussions. I think she forces conversations that need to be had.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have a response to the question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think with Obama and Kamala Harris, I think it definitely shifted the way a lot of people began to define Blackness, because with both of them, like, the question became like, is representation just enough for us? Or do we want representation and also someone who centers and has policies that actually support Black people? Because you can be a Black politician, but at the same time, your policies don't reflect that, and your policies may not actually help Black people. They might actually hurt them. And so I think our conversation became a lot more complex when people started to see Obama and Harris, because for a lot of people, I think for a while, representation was enough. But now we're actually starting to question, like, whether or not you actually have policies that positively affect Black people and what you're actually doing for Black people. And I think that relates to our films, because we don't just have, you know, Black femmes in our films. They're also centered, and their narratives are also very complex. So there's a lot of depth to our characters, because I think also in film for a while, you know, for some time, people began to question, okay, we might have the representation in film, but at the same time, are those stories actually, you know, positively affecting Black girls and Black femmes? And are those stories actually reflecting what we experience? And so I think with Obama and Kamala, and then like with our films, I think the conversation is becoming more complex. I think we are seeing that representation only goes so far, and that we also need to have films and to have art that really also reflects our experiences and also has complexity.
Amazingly said. This question that Nia has posed actually, brings me to a question myself that I would actually love for everybody to answer. Our festival is, definitely a safe haven for a lot of Black filmmakers, Black trans filmmakers, Black femmes all over the country, and also different parts of the world, because this is an international festival. We have films from everywhere. So, as filmmakers and as people who are presenting the films in the Defining Black program and also programmed at this festival, what does it actually mean to you personally for you to know that the audience that you're garnering and are watching these films are, in the same identity group, if not adjacent, and have the same political views?
I'll jump in, I guess. It feels good because I have personally waited a long time to be able to just watch a film by a Black filmmaker, a Black woman filmmaker, Black femme, trans, whatever, just a long, long time. I think one of the first films I watched where the cast or the participants were predominantly Black was Paris is Burning. And for the longest time, I kind of felt weird about it. It felt like something about it was off. And I came to find out that it was directed by a white woman, and that none of the drag queens or the trans women or anyone in the film was paid. And in fact, one of the participants was murdered during the filming of it. So that made me feel very weird, because here you have a community of people who are like essentially responsible, like who are the creators of the language that we use right now as like Black femmes and women. And they were just like ripped off. So after that, I made it a point to find directors who are of color, watch their films, or find more women directors. And to find that there's a festival where it's just like Black femmes, and it's about us and for us, and it's for young women and older women, and like others have said, like complex stories. It feels very good, and it's very exciting as well.
I'll go, just something brief, but I think it feels really great to be able to spread joy and laughter, honestly, to other Black women and other Black people. So I think that's probably the shining moment for me, is just being able to know that this Black community is watching our films, and they're also laughing, especially during these times. And so I think that's, for me, that
was something that we were definitely trying to be conscious of this year. We have pretty much 0 to none films that needed a trigger warning. And Nia and I were very, very, specific that like, this has been a rough year for us, as a global diaspora across the world. And this is a time where we should laugh and gather and be in joy, and have complex stories that do not leave us in pain. And if we're crying of laughter, or we're crying of joy, or we're crying of love. And that was the most important part of putting together this year's program, and, setting the stakes of what our legacy is going to look like moving forward. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, Chanel. Would anybody else? Yes.
I will say, for me, I'm really happy that this is a Black Femme Women Festival, because I just think we need to know our history. And a lot of my work has been about that. So I'm really pleased that maybe a younger generation that doesn't know about SNCC, Student Nonviolence, all these different groups, Highlander Center, all these people that worked so hard during the Civil Rights Movement to do things like set up entire schools across the entire South. with no money, no, hiding from the Ku Klux Klan, the whole bit. I think is really, really important. So thank you for putting us in this festival.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of that for thanking you guys for including me. This is a first. This is the first experience I've been in film festivals before for past work, and I I didn't see anyone who looked like me. I've been in film school way too long, and I don't really see anyone who looks like me. So to be on a panel right now, to see all of your cards and to see your films, it's an experience that I'm glad that I got to experience, because it can definitely feel sometimes in this space of filmmaking that is predominantly white and predominantly male. It can feel like, you're scraping and scratching to be seen and heard. So it feels really good to see all of you.
Yeah, I agree. This is also our first festival experience as well. So it's really great for it to start off like this. I think it's really encouraging, and it makes us really happy and want to make more films when the audience that we're creating for receives it so well. If we never make a big budget Hollywood film, I'll be fine, as long as that conversation between us and our audience is so honest and real, and they feel like they're being seen in our films as well. We just really want that relationship with other Black women, other Black femme people, just being able to appreciate our film and understand each other. And that's really where I feel success lies.
I also want to add, this is also a very well run festival. You guys might be in a setup, because when you go to the next one, it might not be this organized. I've been in a lot of festivals, and I actually, I even run a film conference with one of my groups. So this is, I have to say, it was very well organized. I was able to jump in pretty easily for Kath. So thank you.
I appreciate that, because it's COVID year. It's a virtual, it's a fire behind us, and we're trying to do the best we can. Kendra, do you have anything to add to my question?
Yeah, and to what everyone else said, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I just feel especially it's very affirming to be in these spaces and to definitely see that, your films are being received by Black people and Black femmes, because that's ultimately the experience that I speak from, and the experiences that I'm inspired by. And so I just feel this means this festival means more to me than any other festival, because Black people are receiving my films, and that's the audience that I want to speak to.
Period. We have one final question from the audience. It's a long one, so I'll read the first part. There's a lot of conversation on social media about who is and isn't Black. I've seen it often centered around who is most oppressed by anti-Black racism. My perspectives include that aspect, as well as who has the experience to speak and create in the name of Blackness. What we call the recreation of our culture after our indigenous culture was intentionally cut off from our trafficked ancestors. Nola Honey is asking, how do we define Blackness? Do you gatekeep or actively defend the boundaries of Blackness? It's a big question, y'all. Who wants to take this one?
I feel like this is one of those questions where everyone has their own definition of Blackness.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even know how to begin to answer that. I'm a first generation Canadian, so I'm very much attached to the Congo and Angola, more so than I am Canada. I know where all the Congolese and Angolese slaves have ended up. I know where my ancestors are buried, all that type of stuff. It's difficult to define Blackness. I think there's kind of bonded by trauma, and also by joy. It's a very big question. I definitely do gatekeep some things because I do think that there are things that we need to say no to. An example is when you see non-Black people wearing braids or Bantu knots or dreadlocks, you know, just some things that like it's not even like this is only for Black people, but also your hair will fall off if you do this type of thing because you don't have the proper hair texture. So I do speak up when it comes to things like that, but I don't think it's like one Black community. We have multiple Black communities, African Canadians, Black Americans, Afro Latinas, Black Europeans, Africans on the continent. You know, we have so many communities that we can't like come up to with one definition of it, and that's really all I can say about that.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like a difficult question to answer, especially since so many people have different definitions. But what I feel like is important and what this film festival is also bringing to light is having conversation across the diaspora and being able to communicate with each other and really figure out what it means to us as a whole, and making sure that although we're all Black, we could say, like in skin color, making sure that different communities don't feel like they're not being heard. We really want to highlight everybody and just make sure that we learn and grow and make room for each other. And I think that's the best way we can do it, because it's just really hard to just be together in a group. And non-Black people and white people honestly have no say in this conversation. That's all. Yeah.
I love that. You know, we're out of time, folks. It was a stimulating discussion. We got right into the meat of it at the end. Real quickly, where can people find your work? Round robin, let's go.
I'll go for Sasha and Condi. You can find us on our website at suburbanmilitants.com. Again, we're riffing off of our own experiences. So that's suburbanmilitants.com, or you can follow us on Instagram at Sasha_and_Condi.
That is the best website title I've ever heard. Awesome. Who's next?
Thank you.
Who's next?
Talea. So you can find the Literacy Project films at www.theliteracyproject.org on the and then you can click the YouTube link, or you can find it at Literacy Project Films, but they won't come out until October. I think we have to go through a few more festivals. But that film and the other shorts will be there.
My Instagram is very easy to find. It's African Street Meat. Yeah, and that you can find what I'm working on there and all the pro-Black memes you could ever dream of.
I love that.
Yeah, my Instagram and Twitter is IFOLUWA_, and then Claudia is looking, her Twitter is looking the number 4 Nanaya, and Instagram is looking for spelled out FOR Nanaya. And yeah, just be on the lookout. We have some up and coming projects. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at So Much Amber. I'm graduating this year, so I'm curating my work, and I'll be updating stuff on there.
COVID in school, a match made in heaven. I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, so for my work and for more information about the walk home, you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Kendra Monet and 3 underscores. Monet is spelled MONET.
All right. Chanel?
Same as what Jill said. Yeah.
Okay, great. And y'all can find me at Sister Samaha on Twitter. That is the only platform I like to use. You can find Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival at BFS Film Fest on Twitter and Instagram, and the full title, Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival on Facebook. I would like to thank everybody here today. The festival is going to be running. All of our programming will continue until Monday, while all of the Q&As will continue today. Make sure you check out our closing night film, the world premiere of Anatomy of Wings. And the most important thing is to vote for the Audience Choice Award. You can do that on our website, bfsfilmfest.com, or you can log on to our link tree on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, any of the socials, and you can find the link there. Thank you all so much for joining this morning, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the virtual festival.
Thank you.